Sometimes the most beautiful mornings can hide the darkest truths. That day, with my baby in my arms, I learned just how fragile perfection can be. The morning sun filtered through the nursery's curtains as I gently rocked my 3-month-old daughter Lily in my arms. The soft glow illuminated her peaceful sleeping face, completely unaware that this ordinary morning would shatter our family's carefully constructed facade. My name is Natalie, and at 34, I thought I had achieved the perfect life, a beautiful home in an upscale neighborhood, a successful husband, and now a precious daughter. But as I would soon discover, perfection is often just an illusion waiting to be broken. The day had started like any other. Thomas was in the shower, preparing for the annual family gathering where he would receive an award for upholding our family's traditional values. The irony of that would soon become apparent. His phone lay on the breakfast table, momentarily forgotten. When it buzzed with a message, I normally wouldn't have looked, but the preview notification caught my eye, missing your touch. Still thinking about last night's passion. From someone named Victoria K. With trembling hands and Lily sleeping soundly in her carrier, I picked up the phone. His password was still our wedding date, something he'd apparently forgotten to change. What I found made my stomach turn, hundreds of intimate messages, photos, and even plans for a trip to the Maldives, all with Victoria Keller. The messages painted a clear picture. While I was up at night caring for our newborn, my husband was planning a new life with another woman. I heard the shower stop running upstairs. My hands moved quickly through the message threads, taking screenshots and sending them to my own phone. 10 years of marriage, and I never once felt the need to check his phone. Now, each swipe revealed another betrayal, another lie. The messages went back months, starting shortly after my pregnancy complications had put me on bed rest. "Breakfast smells amazing," Thomas called out, descending the stairs in his perfectly pressed suit. I'd already placed his phone back exactly where it had been, the screen dark and innocent looking. "You didn't have to cook today, honey. We'll be at the hotel soon enough." I managed a smile, years of maintaining social grace coming in handy. "It's your big day. The family's Traditional Values Award deserves a proper celebration, don't you think?" The words tasted bitter in my mouth. Thomas beamed, adjusting his tie in the hallway mirror. "Mother's been planning this for months. You know how she gets about family traditions." He crossed the kitchen and kissed the top of Lily's head, then mine. His cologne, the same one I'd noticed in their intimate photos from their secret dates, made my stomach churn. "Speaking of your mother," I said, keeping my voice steady, "she called earlier about the video presentation. Wanted to make sure everything's set up properly." A lie, but one that would serve my purpose. "I'll need your phone to connect to the hotel's system." "You're always so thorough with the technical stuff," he replied, handing over his phone without hesitation. "That's why you're the best." Another kiss, this time on my cheek. I wondered how many times he'd kissed Victoria with those same lips. The drive to the hotel was quiet, filled only with Lily's occasional coos from her car seat. Thomas rehearsed his speech under his breath, words about family loyalty and moral character flowing easily from a man who'd written to his mistress about how inconvenient my difficult pregnancy had been. The hotel lobby bustled with activity. Thomas's family had spared no expense for the annual gathering, as usual. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and elegant flower arrangements adorned every surface. Grace, my mother-in-law, spotted us immediately. "There's my perfect family," she exclaimed, hurrying over in her designer suit. Her perfectly coiffed hair didn't move an inch as she bent to coo at Lily. "And how's my precious granddaughter this morning?" "Thomas, darling, your father wants to review your speech one last time." I seized the opportunity. "I'll take care of the technical setup while you do that," I offered. "Grace, would you mind watching Lily for a few minutes?" "Of course, dear." She eagerly took the baby carrier. The AV team is already in the main hall. Everything needs to be perfect for the presentation. Perfect. That word again. I watched Thomas disappear into his father's makeshift office, still rehearsing under his breath. The main hall was indeed perfect, rows of chairs arranged with military precision, a massive screen behind the podium, and state-of-the-art audiovisual equipment at the ready. The young technician looked up as I approached. "Mrs. Harrison?" We're almost finished with the setup. The system's ready for any presentation materials you have. Actually, I smiled, we'll be doing something a bit different. Let me show you exactly what I need. As I explained my requirements, I couldn't help but notice that Victoria's online status had changed to available. Right on schedule for their morning video call, the daily ritual they shared while I was supposedly busy with Lily's morning routine. Family members began filing into the hall. Thomas's sister Charlotte adjusted flower arrangements while his younger brother Marcus helped elderly relatives to their seats. In the front row, Grace bounced Lily gently on her knee, pointing out relatives to the baby who was far more interested in her own tiny fingers. I checked my watch. 10:58 a.m. Victoria would be calling any minute now, expecting their usual private conversation. Instead, she'd have quite an audience. My hands were steady now as I made the final connections, ensuring the hotel's video system was properly configured. 2 minutes until we start, William, Thomas's father, announced. His voice carried the authority of someone used to running both his business and family with equal command. Natalie, is everything ready with the technical setup? Almost perfect, I replied, carefully emphasizing that last word. Just need to make one final connection. The grand ballroom hummed with anticipation as more family members took their seats. Each crystal chandelier cast a warm glow that somehow made everything feel more artificial. I watched from my position near the AV control panel as Thomas worked the room, greeting elderly aunts and uncles with that perfect smile I'd once found so charming. Everything's set for the video connection, the young technician confirmed, handing me the wireless remote. Just press this when you're ready to accept any incoming calls. I smiled, thanking him as I slipped the remote into my pocket. My phone buzzed, another message from Victoria to Thomas. Can't wait for our morning video chat, my love. I have a special surprise that'll make you forget all about your dreary home life. Grace approached, still holding Lily. Natalie, dear, you look a bit pale. Are you feeling all right? The concern in her voice seemed genuine. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for what was about to happen to her perfect family image. Almost. Just tired from the night feedings, I lied smoothly. You know how it is with a newborn. Grace nodded sympathetically, clearly pleased by my dedication to motherhood. If she only knew how her precious son had complained to his mistress about my constant exhaustion and how unsexy he found my post-pregnancy body. The memories of last night's discoveries flashed through my mind. After finding the messages, I'd spent hours going through everything while Thomas slept peacefully beside me. The Maldives trip was just the beginning. They'd been planning their future together, a future that didn't include me or Lily. Once she loses the baby weight and can handle the kid on her own, we'll tell her, Thomas had written. She'll be fine. She's always been independent. Victoria had been enthusiastic about their plans. I can't wait to be Mrs. Harrison, she'd replied. I'll be so much better at handling your family's social obligations than she ever was. And don't worry about Lily, I'm great with kids. We can have her on weekends. My hands clenched involuntarily at the memory. They'd already been discussing custody arrangements, planning their perfect life while I was up every 2 hours nursing our daughter. William took the podium, commanding immediate attention. Family and friends, we gather today to celebrate not just achievement, but the values that make the Harrison name synonymous with integrity and family devotion. Behind him, the massive screen remained dark, waiting. In particular, we're here to honor my son, Thomas, who exemplifies everything our family stands for: dedication to family, moral character, and unwavering commitment to traditional values. The irony was almost painful. I watched Thomas straighten his tie, preparing to accept his award for being the perfect family man. The quiet murmur of conversation filled the room as William detailed the family's history of moral character and dedication to family values. I noticed Charlotte filming with her phone. She always documented these family moments. Today's video would certainly be memorable, just not in the way she expected. My mind wandered to the first time I'd met Thomas, at a charity gala 10 years ago. He'd seemed so genuine then, talking about his family's values and his dreams of raising children in a loving, traditional home. I'd fallen for the illusion completely. Now I wondered if there had ever been any truth to it at all. The pregnancy had been difficult from the start. Severe morning sickness had kept me hospitalized for weeks. Thomas had been supportive, or so I'd thought. Now I knew he'd been visiting Victoria during those hospital stays, complaining about how my dramatic health issues were affecting his social life. The small indicator light on the AV panel turned green. Right on schedule. My hand tightened around the remote as Victoria's incoming call appeared on the system's preview screen. She'd clearly put effort into her appearance this morning, though her choice of attire was far from modest. And now, William was saying, it gives me great pride to present this year's Family Values Award to my son, Thomas Harrison, a man who truly exemplifies the meaning of family commitment and moral integrity in his personal life. Applause filled the room as Thomas stood, straightening his jacket as he approached the podium. He kissed his mother's cheek as he passed, patted his father's shoulder. The perfect son. The perfect husband. The perfect lie. I pressed the button. The massive screen behind them flickered to life. Victoria's face appeared, her blonde hair artfully tousled, wearing what appeared to be one of Thomas's dress shirts, one I'd given him for his last birthday. Good morning, my love, she purred, clearly not realizing she was broadcasting to a room full of people. Missing you already. Last night was incredible. I still can't believe how lucky I am to have you. The color drained from Thomas's face as he spun around, finally seeing the screen. He turned back, his eyes finding mine in horror. I met his gaze steadily, bouncing Lily gently on my knee. Victoria continued, adjusting her camera angle. I've been looking at more houses in the Maldives. I know we said we'd wait until after your divorce, but I found the perfect villa. She laughed, a sound that echoed through the silent room. Your wife's so busy with the baby, she probably won't even contest it. You said yourself she's too exhausted to think straight these days. Grace's hand flew to her mouth. William's expression hardened as he heard his son's marriage being discussed so callously. The room was dead silent except for Victoria's voice and Lily's quiet coos. I've already started planning the wedding, Victoria continued, holding up a bridal magazine. I know we have to wait for appearances' sake, but I was thinking a spring ceremony next year. Your mother will love me so much more then. Victoria, stop. Thomas finally managed to croak out. She froze, finally noticing the background behind him. Her eyes widened as she took in the conference room, the family members, and me sitting calmly in the front row with his daughter. Oh my God, she whispered, her face turning pale. The screen went black as she disconnected. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears as I waited, Lily still happily playing with my necklace, completely unaware of the bomb that had just detonated her family. Son. William's voice was arctic. My office. Now. Natalie, I can explain, Thomas started, but I cut him off. I think Victoria explained everything quite clearly, I said, keeping my voice level. Though I'm particularly interested in hearing more about your divorce and custody plans. The ones you made while I was in the hospital carrying your child. Around us, family members were whispering, phones were being pulled out, and decades of Harrison family reputation were crumbling in real time. Charlotte had stopped filming, her hand covering her mouth in shock. Marcus, Thomas's brother, stood up abruptly and walked out, disgust evident on his face. I stood up, gathering Lily's things with calm precision. I'll have my lawyer contact you, I told Thomas, who seemed to have aged 10 years in the past 5 minutes. I'm sure you understand I'll be seeking full custody. After all, you did say I was too exhausted to contest anything. Grace stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. Thomas, how could you? Your own wife, your baby. She reached for Lily, but then pulled back, as if unsure of her right to touch her granddaughter now. As I walked toward the door, Lily secure in my arms, I heard William addressing the stunned family members. I apologize for this unfortunate situation. The Family Values Award ceremony is clearly postponed. I didn't look back. Sometimes karma doesn't need any help, it just needs the right stage to reveal the truth. The next 48 hours passed in a whirlwind of activity. I moved into a suite at a different hotel with Lily, ignoring the constant stream of calls and messages from Thomas. By Monday morning, the incident had already sent shockwaves through our social circle. I sat in my lawyer's office, Lily sleeping peacefully in her carrier as my lawyer Jessica laid out our strategy. "The evidence is overwhelming," she said, shuffling through the screenshots I'd taken. "The video call alone is damning enough, but the messages discussing divorce plans while you were hospitalized? No judge will look kindly on that." "He was planning to leave me all along," I replied, keeping my voice low to avoid waking Lily. "While I was on bed rest, fighting to keep our baby safe, he was planning his new life with her." Jessica nodded grimly. William called. "He wants to meet with you privately before any formal proceedings begin." I wasn't surprised. The Harrison family name meant everything to William, and now his perfect son had tarnished it spectacularly. An hour later, I sat across from William in his home office, Lily still sleeping soundly beside me. Family photos lined the walls, decades of perfectly staged Harrison family moments, including my wedding photo. William looked at it now, shaking his head slowly. "First, I want to apologize," he began, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "What Thomas did, it's unforgivable. To you, to Lily, to everything this family stands for." I nodded, waiting. William hadn't maintained his family's social standing by being sentimental. "We'll make sure you and Lily are taken care of," he continued. "The prenuptial agreement has a morality clause. Thomas's actions, well, let's just say you'll be very well provided for." He paused, looking at his sleeping granddaughter. "And of course, we hope you'll allow me and Grace, to remain part of Lily's life." I studied his face, seeing genuine pain there. "You didn't raise him to be this way," I said softly. William's shoulders sagged slightly. "No," he replied. "Perhaps we raised him to be too perfect. So perfect he forgot how to be real." He straightened up, businessman mode engaging. "We've frozen his access to the family accounts. The house is yours, of course. And there will be a generous settlement in addition to the prenup terms." 1 week after the video call incident, the true fallout began to unfold. I was reviewing divorce papers in my hotel suite when Charlotte called. "Have you seen Victoria's social media?" Her voice had an edge of satisfaction. "Someone leaked their private messages, all of them. Including the ones from when you were in the hospital." I opened Instagram to find Victoria's perfectly curated life crumbling in real time. Screenshots of their conversations were spreading like wildfire through the society circles. Her cruel comments about my pregnancy complications, their plans to take Lily for weekend parenting practice, the countdown calendar to when they thought I'd be desperate enough to accept any divorce terms. "The best part?" Charlotte continued. "Those Maldives vacation tickets she bought with Thomas's credit card? Non-refundable. And guess who just got fired from her job for immoral conduct violations? Turns out her boss is on the hospital board where you were treated. She didn't appreciate reading about how they used your medical emergencies for their date nights." I watched as Victoria's desperate damage control attempts backfired spectacularly. Each explanation post only drew more attention to her role in destroying a young mother's marriage. The society wives she tried so hard to impress were particularly merciless in their comments. Grace called that evening, her voice thick with emotion. "I found something you should see," she said. "I was going through old family photos and..." She paused. "Could you come to the house? Please? I know you have every right to refuse, but this is important." I hesitated, but curiosity won out. An hour later, I sat in the Harrison family living room, Lily asleep in her carrier, as Grace brought out a worn photo album. "I was wrong," she began, opening the album. "All these years, I was so focused on maintaining the perfect family image that I forgot what family really means." She turned to a page showing a much younger Grace, holding a baby Thomas. "I did the same thing to Thomas's father that he did to you." I stared at her, shocked. This wasn't common knowledge in their social circle. "William isn't Thomas's biological father," Grace continued. "His real father was, well, that doesn't matter now. William married me when Thomas was 6 months old, adopted him, gave him his name. He chose to be a father. She looked at Lily. Just like you choose to protect your child, even when it hurts. The next morning, as if karma wasn't finished yet, Thomas's carefully hidden financial misdeeds came to light. Victoria, in her attempt to salvage her reputation, had posted their private chat logs, including discussions about money he'd been hiding from me during the marriage. "We've got him," Jessica announced during our morning meeting. "Those hidden accounts he mentioned? They were funded with joint marital assets. Everything he tucked away during your pregnancy? It's all part of the marital estate. And the judge is particularly interested in the transfers he made while you were hospitalized." Thomas's desperate attempts to contact me had shifted to his lawyer trying to negotiate terms. The perfect son had been exposed as a fraud, the perfect husband revealed as a cheat, and now the perfect businessman was facing serious financial consequences. Victoria's fall from grace continued spectacularly. Her meticulously crafted social media presence, once full of luxury brand partnerships and society event invitations, now showcased a steady stream of cancelled collaborations and rescinded memberships. The country club where she'd first met Thomas publicly revoked her membership. But the real satisfaction came from an unexpected source. Marcus, Thomas's younger brother, had been quietly gathering evidence of his own. "I always knew something was off," he told me over coffee. "The way he treated you during the pregnancy, the constant work meetings that didn't match his schedule." So I started keeping records. Those records proved devastating. Photos of Thomas and Victoria at expensive restaurants on nights I was in the hospital. Credit card statements showing jewelry purchases that never made it to me. Hotel receipts from their rendezvous, dated to my worst days of pregnancy complications. William called an emergency family meeting, this time, at his home rather than a hotel. The irony of the setting wasn't lost on anyone. I sat in the same seat where, just months ago, we'd celebrated my baby shower. "I've made a decision," William announced to the assembled family members. "Thomas's actions have demonstrated that he is not worthy of the Harrison name." The room fell silent. In their social circle, this was the equivalent of a public execution. "Natalie and Lily will retain the Harrison name if they choose," he continued. "Thomas, however, will revert to his biological father's surname. He has proven that he does not uphold the values that define this family." I watched my husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, as the full weight of his father's words hit him. The perfect mask finally cracked completely. The man who had orchestrated an elaborate betrayal while I fought to bring our daughter safely into the world now sat alone, stripped of everything he'd taken for granted. Victoria's final attempt at reputation salvage backfired spectacularly. She gave an interview to a local society magazine, attempting to paint herself as the victim of a loveless marriage. Instead, the reporter, who turned out to be an old friend of Charlotte's, published a scathing exposé. Every cruel message about my pregnancy complications, every manipulative plan they'd made while I was in the hospital, every callous joke about my post-pregnancy struggles, all of it was now public record. The society circles they'd so desperately wanted to impress turned on them completely. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Thomas, his perfect image shattered and his hidden accounts exposed, barely contested the terms. Victoria, who had already moved to the Maldives with their non-refundable tickets, found herself alone in paradise with no way to maintain the lifestyle she'd coveted. Grace spent more time with Lily now, making up for lost time and rediscovering what family truly meant. William, freed from the burden of maintaining a perfect family image, became the grandfather he'd always wanted to be. "You know what the best revenge is?" Charlotte asked me one afternoon, watching Lily play in the garden of what was now officially my house. "It's not just that you exposed them. It's that you did it by simply showing everyone exactly who they really are." Marcus nodded, adding, "They constructed this elaborate fantasy of a perfect life they'd have together, built on the pain they caused you and Lily. But in the end, all it took was one moment of truth to bring it all down." I looked at my daughter, happily unaware of the drama that had unfolded around her. The perfect family facade had cracked, but from those cracks, something real had grown. Something stronger than the illusion had ever been. The final nail in their coffin came from an unexpected source. The Maldives resort, having seen the viral story, cancelled Victoria's booking and publicly announced they don't cater to homewreckers who exploit medical emergencies. They refunded the non-refundable deposit to me, as it had been paid with marital assets. I used the money to start a foundation supporting mothers with pregnancy complications. The first donation came from William and Grace, along with a note that read, "For the daughter who showed us what family values really mean." Thomas, now stripped of his borrowed name and perfect image, was left to watch from the sidelines as his daughter grew up surrounded by a family that had learned the difference between perfection and truth. Victoria's carefully curated social media went dark after one final post, a bitter acknowledgement that karma, indeed, comes for everyone eventually. 1 year after the video call that changed everything, my life had transformed in ways I never expected. My beautiful daughter Lily was taking her first steps in our garden, her laughter filling the morning air. The house, now legally mine after the divorce, had become a true home, filled with warmth and genuine love instead of fake perfection. The morning news painted a very different picture of my ex-husband's new life. Thomas, no longer allowed to use the prestigious Harrison name, was now Thomas Walker, working as a sales clerk at a discount clothing store in the mall. The man who once drove luxury cars and carried platinum credit cards now took the bus to work and lived in a tiny studio apartment. His mistress Victoria hadn't fared any better. Her dream of becoming the next Mrs. Harrison had crumbled spectacularly. After spending all the money she'd taken from Thomas on her fresh start in the Maldives, she'd been forced to take a job as a part-time yoga instructor at the very resort where they planned to start their new life. The karmic justice didn't stop there. The country club where they'd conducted their affair had not only revoked their memberships but displayed their photos at the security desk with a clear, "Do not admit," warning. Their names had become a cautionary tale in social circles. "Don't pull a Thomas," and Victoria had become shorthand for spectacular falls from grace. My lawyer Jessica kept me updated on Thomas's continued downward spiral. Every time he applied for a prestigious position, the viral video of his public humiliation would surface in background checks. His dating life was equally disastrous. Word had spread about how he'd treated his postpartum wife, making him radioactive in the dating pool. But their misfortunes were just footnotes in my story now. My world was filled with Lily's first words, her growing personality, and the genuine love of true family. Grace and William, my former in-laws who'd chosen to stand by me, had become the loving grandparents Lily deserved. William and Grace visited every weekend, bringing homemade treats and genuine love for their granddaughter. The perfectly staged family photos had been replaced by candid shots of Lily covered in cookie dough or falling asleep in the garden. These moments of imperfect joy meant more than any society appearance ever had. As I watched my daughter chasing butterflies through our garden, her giggles echoing in the spring air, I knew we'd won more than just revenge. We'd found something better than perfection. We'd found joy in being real. And that was the sweetest victory of all.